evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all the participants in today's webinar. This is our 84th webinar in our talk series. A special welcome to key speakers, Steve Friedman and Mrs. Ronarose Train, who will be in conversation with Steve today. Thank you both for agreeing to do this session so early in the morning in the US. We're honored to have today Her Excellency, Mrs. Catherine Kivi, Ambassador to India from Estonia. And again, a very special welcome to all our distinguished guests and councils from all parts of the globe representing many countries. A very short brief on Rtambhara Wellness. We are a collective of like-minded individuals who are driven by the passion of spreading the knowledge of holistic well-being. Our mission is to achieve human wellness and well-being through this holistic approach. With this intent, we conduct corporate programs and group retreats for wellness that empower oneself through self-discovery and transformation for unlocking one's potential. If you resonate with what we are doing and would like to be part of the Rtambhara Wellness community, then please post your details on the chat, your email, and your cell number. We are creating a wellness community at Rtambhara, and we would like volunteers to spread the word on wellness and be part of our organizing committee. So please mention that when you put your email and your cell number in the chat. Today's session will be for 60 minutes. We will start with a conversation between Mr. Steve Friedman and Mrs. Ronarose Train. Steve will talk about his book, The Corporate Introvert, How to Lead and Thrive with Confidence. Finally, we can have all of you ask Steve any questions that you would like answered. And feel free to post your questions using the chat function, or you may use the raise hand icon in reactions, which you see at the bottom of your screen. To start off the program today, may I request Mrs. Ritika Bhagat, an active volunteer with Rtambhara Wellness, to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Steve Friedman.
Thank you, Beenaji. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce Mr. Steve Friedman, who is an award-winning author, motivational speaker, and trainer. Steve says, "If I knew then what I know now, I have finally realized to be happy. I don't need to change myself. I just need to be myself." When he wrote his memoir, In Search of Courage, he realized that the common thread of introversion that he thought was a curse all his life was actually a blessing. For years, he wore a mask at work and coped with his stress by sacrificing health and personal relationships. Now he embraces all his introversion as a toolkit to become a happier person. His purpose is to help other introverts to accelerate their own journey, to discover their strength and how to apply them at home and at work. He also seeks to inspire others to overcome past obstacles and find joy, pride, and confidence in life. Steve retired from corporate America and enjoys sharing articles, books, quizzes, and resources through his website named beyondintroversion.com. He's excited to combine his career experiences and his enthusiastic belief in all introverts through his new leadership book, The Corporate Introvert, How to Lead and Thrive with Confidence. We are very excited to have you with us, Steve. Very warm welcome.
Now, thank you very much.
May I now request?
Thank you so much, Ritika. May I now request our Operations Director, Mr. Rohan Nayak, to introduce Mrs. Ronarose Train, who will be in conversation with Mr. Steve.
I'm honored to introduce our speaker, Ronarose Train from Houston, Texas. She's a businesswoman, a world traveler, and now a published author of The Miracle known as Ed Levine, and her latest, Annie and Me. 2020 was a difficult year for all of us, and 2021 seems to be a challenging time as well. But challenges are what life is all about. Her book relates to the true story about one man and his challenges. The Miracle known as Ed Levine proves that no matter what happens to us, it is how we choose to respond to those challenges that count. Welcome, Ronarose. Over to you, Steve and Ronarose.
Thank you so much, Rohanji. Over to you, Steve and Ronarose, and we're looking forward to your conversation.
Thank you so much. We're both excited to be here. It's always an honor to join you guys at Rtambhara Wellness with all you do, that we have an opportunity to share some of our perspectives and our work. And so it's very much a treat. It's a special treat for me that I get to come back and spend the time with my friend Rona. And so thanks again for the flexibility and the structure of today's discussion, because I think that whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, I think that you'll hopefully come through this session with a lot more of an understanding of yourself and of other people. Rona and I talked about this for quite a while, because we've known each other for a few years. We've written together. We've got to know each other and our families a little bit together. So it's really an honor for us to have a chance to just chat for the better part of an hour and compare notes on how we approach things, because deep down, I think what we've realized is we have a lot of the same goals, whether it was work goals or personal goals, writing goals. A lot of them are very similar, but how we go about those is extremely different. And it's just quite interesting to see how we have done that along the way. And so we just wanted to have a very informal conversation to share those approaches and then field questions from everyone in the audience. Rona, anything you'd like to add?
Steve, I'll jump in, of course. Thank you also to Rtambhara and to my friend Bina and my friend Praveen Goenka for inviting me for this experience with my friend Steve Friedman. It is an honor and I appreciate it. Steve, I want to ask you to explain the difference between introversion and shyness. Is the person who is introverted a shy person?
That's a great place to start, because I think that's a misunderstanding, not just in the general public, but by shy and introverted people around the world, including myself. I would certainly consider myself both shy and introverted, but they don't necessarily come together. In the simplest way I could explain it is introversion is really part of our DNA. And science has proven that out, that there's a lot of physical and chemical differences between introverts and extroverts. We're born as an introvert or an extrovert. Now, we all sit on a very long continuum and everybody's different. And so some people are more introverted or extroverted in different situations with different people. And so not everyone is the same, but introverts are basically find energy from within as opposed to from other people. That doesn't mean that we're not sociable and so forth. We can talk about that later. But introversion is something that we're born with and we'll have throughout our life. So the opportunity there, as we'll talk about, is how can we manage that and utilize our strengths to succeed as an introvert in everything that we do. Shyness is not really a DNA aspect. Shyness is a personality trait that may be developed because of the surroundings that we're in, because of difficult situations. Maybe we, as a kid, maybe we got bullied or teased and we become shy and just really more afraid of being with other people or being in front of other people. So shyness tends to be more of that fear. However, shyness is not a DNA trait. So shyness can be overcome. And a lot of that is through practice and just an understanding of and building up confidence in ourselves to be able to be in front of other people and talk and share the information that we have. A lot of the tricks for championing our introversion or overcoming our shyness are similar, but they are different approaches to in order to lead or thrive, not just in the workplace, but in life with confidence.
Steve, I think you made a very important point that an introvert gains energy from solitude and quiet, being alone, but not alone in your mind. You're planning, you're thinking, you're remembering. An extrovert is gregarious and requires people, and is you can say that I, the extrovert, require people for my energy, And I could give you 20 examples right now, I won't, about times in my life, in my daily life, that I seek sociability, I seek people. And so here we've been faced with a year and a half of forced solitude. COVID has driven us all into our homes. And I imagine that you and I have approached it differently. How would you say you've been affected by this?
Yeah, I think those are really good points. And I would revert back to the continuum that I mentioned earlier and say that I think you're exactly right. Extroverts thrive off of that conversation and engagement with other people, and introverts tend to be very introspective. That being said, there are, I'm sure, extroverts that like to ponder life in general at times. It just may not drive them and build up the energy that they're seeking. And introverts like to socialize, but usually in smaller settings. The pandemic has certainly challenged all of us, as you said. I think that on the surface, many introverts felt when this happened, aside from obviously the health risks and the family implications, that the opportunity to leave the oftentimes chaotic workplace and work from home was a bit of a blessing and an opportunity for them to kind of pull back away from people and just and find a more solitary environment to work. However, I think that even the most introverted people, including myself, really do enjoy having interaction with people. We know that in order to meet a lot of our work or personal goals, we want to and need to engage with other people. And frankly, it's harder for me. I know it's harder to have that engagement when I can't build that foundation of relationship. And it's harder to build that foundation through the phone or even through Zoom than it is to have a personal one-on-one sort of coffee. And so, and also I think that when this all started a year and a half ago, we probably didn't assume we'd still be sitting here a year and a half later having to deal with a lot of these same challenges. And so if you wanted to give me a couple of weeks break, I think I would have certainly enjoyed that. A year and a half later, I think many introverts are anxious to get back to the workplace. On the one hand, thinking that it's going to be an opportunity to rekindle some of those relationships that they had. But on the other hand, it can be overwhelming. So it's almost like starting over for many introverts.
Well, it has been a challenge. And for me, living in a community, in a condominium building, where we can go outside to the pool area and be among people has been really life-saving and probably has saved my sanity, such as it is, so that there are people around. I would like to relate our different personalities to how we face the challenges in the workplace, where we're thrown daily, or were thrown daily, we're both retired now, with people whom we didn't choose, but with whom we had to work on teams, on committees, on projects. And I know you were a leader in your corporation. How did that challenge you?
I think that for at least the first half of my career, the challenge was that as an introvert in a very extroverted culture within corporate America, that I felt like I needed to lead, not my own way, but lead by the role models that seemed to be around me. And although the workplace is roughly 50-50 introverts and extroverts, the ones you tend to see are the more gregarious ones, the ones that seem to have more confidence and lead and push their agenda through meetings. And those tend to be the extroverted people. And so as an introvert, I felt like for me to be successful, I needed to lead that way. And when I tried to lead that way in meetings or within my team, I found it really challenging. I thought I did a pretty good job on the surface, but inside it was eating me up. I had all sorts of health issues because I was basically putting a mask on when I went to work. I took it off when I got home. I was completely exhausted, and I never was really feeling like I was bringing my true ideas and approach to the workplace. I mean, you think about if you go through most of your waking hours pretending to be somebody else, then not only is it exhausting, but it also has a significant impact on your self-esteem, because I think inside we're saying, I'm not good enough, so I'm going to pretend to be somebody else. And that was a challenge for many years at work. And I think most people that I worked with didn't realize what I was doing. They thought I was, one of those, fun-loving people that had a confidence in what I was doing. And so I guess I pulled that off for many years, but it was really a challenge until about the middle of my career.
Well, as an extrovert, married to an extrovert, we build on our strengths to improve the culture of our company, I believe, but also we had so many opportunities at markets, on trips with customers, to be among literally hundreds of people. And we gained energy from getting to know all of those people and spending time, short time or longer periods, with everyone, because we thrived on that. And that also helped our business, I believe, in the long run, and gave us many friendships and wonderful experiences. So not that we couldn't develop close relationships with many of those people, or closer relationships, but we thrived on knowing so many people and being truly interested. Whereas I know that to walk into a room of strangers, as we did many times, we would just start introducing ourselves and say, tell me about yourself. What brings you here? And then listen to them and be truly interested. That type of a situation that you found yourself in over and over again in corporate America must have been frightening and daunting for you as an introvert.
So I love your story about being able to walk in and really approaching it from the opportunity to meet people and develop new relationships. That concept is pretty foreign to me. And I enjoy being with people, but it's very different, especially in those larger rooms. And my work and role oftentimes put me in front of large rooms at conferences and even company events. And it was overwhelming to the point of almost panic attacks. I was at a conference in Peru once with a coworker. And he was actually a member of my team, a junior guy, member of my team, very nice guy, probably introverted as well. And here we are in this conference in Latin America. I knew no one else. I was early in my job in this particular part of the organization. And I was kind of tasked with introducing my teammate to a bunch of other people that I didn't even know. And it scared me to death. And I walked in, it was hard enough for me to do it, but I felt like I had a role or responsibility to help the person on my team that was with me, and I couldn't do it myself. And so whereas you described you'd walk into a room and just start introducing yourself, maybe walk up to a table and just introduce, and then move smoothly through the room, I would expect, knowing you and seeing other people at work in those kind of environments. For me, I found it difficult to go into that environment. I felt like I was very self-conscious of the fact that I was not a smooth talker. And so when I got into the room, I just kind of almost shut down. I call it introvert's paralysis, because you talked about earlier, we're very introspective. So we've got all these thoughts circling around in our brain about, well, this is difficult and I don't like these sort of situations and I don't know anybody and what am I going to say and how would I answer questions, and to the point where it is just mind numbing. And then when we finally actually get to a table and some people ask questions, I've got all these voices going on in my head about what I should say, or am I really here, or why am I at this table, that the conversation was very garbled and it really wasn't successful, which only built on itself, right? That I didn't feel like that went well. And now the conversation at that table seems to be drying up. And so where am I going to go next? And so it was hours of agony moving through that room. Only later in my career, when I really started to understand introversion and embrace the strengths that I have, did I realize I didn't have to approach it. It was kind of like what we talked about earlier. If I approach these kind of large group environments the way everybody else seemingly did, then I was really setting myself up for failure. But if I did it using my own strengths, then I could not only survive, but I could actually enjoy those events. And so for me, it involved a couple of things. Having smaller meetings. So, going into a room of 100 people or more was not my forte. I had to understand that. That was fine. But I would love to have set up meetings with various people from the different companies that were there. So I'd set up meetings in advance, and it might be a coffee, a lunch, or just a side meeting. And we would get a lot done, and we would have a nice casual conversation to introduce each other and talk about personal stuff and build a relationship. And so that was very successful for me and much more comfortable. At the end, sometimes so comfortable, I would build my confidence up that I felt like at the end of the night, I'm going to go into that cocktail hour and I'm going to go work the room a little bit. But I felt like I had really done my job already, my task of building relationships and developing some business. I had done that on these smaller meetings, but it also allowed me to know some of the people in the room. So I could go and kind of bounce around or even go into the event with somebody else, perhaps somebody that was also new from in the industry, and work the room a little bit. But I felt like my goals were probably different from your goals if you set them going into a similar meeting. My goals were not to walk away with a bunch of business cards or to meet everybody in the room. My goal was just to I gave myself like 30 minutes. I'm going to go in there for 30 minutes. I'm going to try and meet a couple of people. If I approach a table and it doesn't seem to be happening, I'm going to excuse myself. I'm going to go find another table. And eventually I might find a couple of more relationships that I'll build and be able to take home to have further conversations with. And to me, that was a successful event. After 30 minutes, if I wanted to go, I was happy to go. And I was proud that I had made those attempts. And if after 30 minutes, I had felt like, that really worked for me, then I'd take another 30 minutes and work the room a little bit more. And so I think it's really providing ourselves with a little bit more flexibility. I'm always curious about how you guys extroverts approach those kind of environments, and the energy that you seem to have gotten from meeting so many strangers, in my opinion.
Well, Steve, I'll tell you the secret, and it's not a secret. Everybody wants to be liked and valued. And so whether it's a strictly social situation or a business situation or a social business situation, it's all about the individual. And if you're interested in them, truly and sincerely interested in them, then the people respond. And so LA and I are always the last people to leave a gathering. We both enjoy meeting people. We like to hear about them. We're very happy to tell them about ourselves if they'll listen. So it's a sincere interest in people, and everything else follows and people respond. If there is any reason for them not to respond to me personally or to anyone for whatever reason, I can usually pick up on the clue and move on to somebody else. But people have told me, Rona, you like everybody. And the truth is, I really do have an interest in other people, and they respond. So having the self-confidence to approach strangers is really more about, tell me about you. And that's the not so secret.
I think that you made two really great points, curiosity and confidence. And many people, whether they're introverts or not, but if they lack that confidence in themselves, then it's hard to be curious because we're asking questions. And so for me, I know as I mentioned earlier, I would have all these comments and challenges going on in my head. So I couldn't really prepare myself to ask questions. And, but I realized later in my career that preparation is one of my strengths, a strength of many introverts. And so if I approach these kind of gatherings with some preparation, which meant for me largely start with, think about questions I want to ask. And they could be general questions you could ask anybody, or it could be that I know that Susan's in the room and I know Susan a little bit from past experience, or even done some digging on social media. And so I know a little bit about Susan, so I can ask her some questions to get the ball rolling. And that changed a lot of my approach to just social interaction, is just being curious. I'm a pretty curious person. However, I was just overwhelmed by my own introspection. And when I pulled back and relaxed and prepared, then I could ask those questions. And like you say, it just built relationships, which I wasn't even giving myself the chance to do in the past.
Well, I think that learning about yourself is life changing. I know it's changed your perspective. So let's talk about change. How do you, as an introvert, view change?
I actually enjoy change. I don't know if it's as much an introvert or an extrovert thing, but I enjoy learning. I do think introverts are big learners in general, maybe because we like to read and we like to listen to podcasts or documentaries or whatever it may be. But I enjoy learning. Sorry. And so I always felt like changing an environment, whether it was a job or moving with a family, was an opportunity to learn different things. And so I learned to embrace that change. I realized, however, that especially in a corporate environment, if I was changing jobs frequently, and I probably in 30 years had about 12 or 15 jobs, that I was changing my environment, I was changing the people I worked with and for, and I was having to start over in many cases on relationship building. So that was early in my career quite intimidating. I felt like the change and the kind of generalist approach to work was just something that I craved and needed. And so the challenge was figuring out how to build those relationships in order to have both the opportunity to learn and to build the relationships through change. Once I figured that out and started to build those relationships my way, more on a one-on-one intimate sort of basis, then it helped for me to feel comfortable with that change. On the surface, though, I can certainly see how many people, introverts in particular, can be very nervous about change because it changes everything. And suddenly we have to rebuild things that for introverts can oftentimes be very challenging to build in the first place.
And sometimes change is not your choice. It's imposed upon you.
Yeah. So what do you think your view was on change? Did you embrace it, or was it a little bit nerve-wracking for you?
Depending upon the change. I've had a lot of changes and challenges in my life, and I've always been very willing to face whatever has come my way. Sometimes I am not very tactful about the way I express my opinions about change or any other thing for that matter. But generally, I try to make the best of it. Often I am the agent for change. And if I see that a change needs to be made, I am not afraid to spearhead that movement. Communication is one of my strengths, being able to and being willing to communicate with others. So like you, I enlist other people to be in that movement with me. And sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes the successful result leads to unwelcome challenges in itself, but generally change is something that I usually embrace and become part of if I believe in it. So, Steve, one thing that interested me so much about your book is the description of the growth rings, your areas of comfort and your journey from one area of comfort to an area of challenge and overcoming that challenge. Would you explain that a little bit for us?
Sure. So I think that it was born from the fact that we've talked a lot about authenticity, and I think it's really critical for us to know who we are and embrace who we are, whoever that is, and discover the strengths that we have. But I don't want that to be misunderstood as we should do that and just stay within that zone of comfort and not stretch ourselves to learn and grow, because I think both are really important and both are certainly very feasible, right? We can learn and grow regardless of who we are. And so from that concept came the growth rings model. So if you envision a series of a circle in the middle and then rings around it, the circle in the middle is what I call the home base. So this is where we all reside, whoever we are, and it's with the strengths and comfort and confidence that we naturally have. So whatever we really truly enjoy doing, our passions, what we're really good at, that's where that is. And so there's no nerves or anything sitting in that home base. It's a pleasant place to be, and we love to be there. However, I think everybody that really seeks to grow and has ambitions to do more and affect more people and achieve more wants to stretch. And I think one of the big concepts of the model is that it encourages us to stretch, not to leap out of our comfort zone, but to stretch our comfort zone. So if we stretch from our home base into the first ring is a neighborhood ring. So it's not a big leap. It's not like we're suddenly doing something completely unfamiliar, because for many that can be a scary sort of idea. But the neighborhood ring is taking those strengths that we know we have, but just trying to do them in a little bit of a different way. And so we give ourselves the opportunity to apply some of those same strengths in new ways. So we like to write, and so we write books and things like that. But the opportunity to use that same skill to write, maybe it's social media posts, or maybe it's editorials, or some other way that we can use our strength and passion of writing in new ways, helps us to grow. The next ring out is the adventure ring. So it's taking those same skills, but doing a little bit more with them and getting ourselves out there by just trying some things. So we can look at other people that are successful at perhaps taking that writing skill and using it to prepare for things like, say, podcasts or webinars like we're having today. And so those are things that maybe sitting at home in our neighborhood at our home ring, we might not have felt comfortable to do. But by stretching through the neighborhood ring, now we're ready to use our skills in newer ways, like having discussions like we are today. And so many people will try that and practice it and get comfortable with that, and they've achieved something. And as we move from one ring to the other, we're building confidence. And I believe confidence is built largely by making small incremental steps. The leaps can be very challenging, but we can get to the same point by just taking those smaller steps on the rings. The last ring is a frontier ring. So again, if we were at home looking out at a frontier ring of, I'm going to get up in front of 100 people and I'm going to talk about my topic, whatever that is, my writing or whatever passions I have, that could be an extremely scary, panic-driven thing for many people. However, as you work your way out the rings, you might get to a point where you say, I'm ready to do that. I'm excited about doing it. I'm nervous perhaps, but I prepare, and I've got all these experiences that lead up to it that make me ready to stretch myself a little bit further. I do think I talk about it in the book about stretching kindly, because I think while it's important to stretch, that we also need to do it with a level of self-compassion. So we stretch ourselves, we try, nobody is perfect at anything. So we try, we do it our way, and we should be very proud of how we do that. If we find that after making some attempts at certain things that it just doesn't work for us, I don't like it, I'm not really enjoying this aspect, it's perfectly fine to say, you know what, I attempted that frontier ring on that aspect. I'm going to pull back because what I'm doing at, say, podcasts on an adventure ring is really my sweet spot. So it's having that compassion to push ourselves, but to also accept where we are and what really works for us, because what works for me, it may be different from what works for you. And frankly, maybe in a few years that will be different as well. But I think it's really incumbent upon us all to continue to learn and grow and do it in a paced sort of approach.
Thank you, Steve. It brings to mind, I was in our family business for 30 years, and I evolved into total quality management. I led that initiative, and part of it was to identify personalities. I had a mentor who taught me how to analyze personality profiles that we gave, and some of it was very rote, and you could actually get a computer readout. But I learned over the years to analyze them myself. And what I found was that if we had a job description and I had analyzed the job description and knew what the job required, if you put a person into that job who enjoys whatever it is that job requires, they're going to succeed and everyone's going to benefit. Mm-hmm. So when someone applied for a job or someone applied for a change to a different job within the company, if they didn't fit that requirement for the job they're applying for, I would tell the manager, don't hire this person. They're not going to enjoy it. Well, they've had 20 years experience doing that kind of job. Yes, but did they enjoy that job? What stress did it put them under as you experienced during your corporate career? So that was very useful to us in our company, and people stayed with us for many, many years because they were in jobs and they changed within the company and grew within the company, and sometimes the job itself changed for the person who moved to it. But one interesting fact that I concluded was that anyone can be a salesperson. It is how they go about that job that changes. The extrovert becomes everybody's friend and sells based upon the relationship of being a friend. And so they're the one that is called to help the customer. Someone who is, say, an introvert who enjoys planning and research becomes the expert, the resource, and that's the one they call to help the customer find what they need. So finding a job that suits your personality, what your needs and skills and strengths are, makes you successful and is successful for your business. So I encourage the people who are not happy in their job either to find a way to use your strengths in that job or to find a different job. And that's a strong statement, especially if you've been in that profession for many years. But your energy is directed to what is meaningful and important to you. And so use your strengths. And if you're in a job that doesn't utilize your strengths, then look for one that does.
Yeah, I think those are great points. And I couldn't agree more, because I think there's, I faced that exact point in time that you described in the middle of my career where I was miserable and I felt like either I need to change jobs, and I'd been with this company for 15, 20 years and had a level of expertise in the technical aspects of the job, but I was miserable. So I either needed to change jobs or I needed to change the way I was doing that job. And I chose the latter because I was ready in my life to go through this really discovery of who I was and how I could find those strengths. So I agree, we need to use our strengths. Many people don't really understand what their strengths are, or they feel like, my strengths are different from the strengths I see all around. And so I'm not sure that I can bring those strengths, whether it's creativity or planning or collaboration, to the table, because all these other people seem like they don't collaborate. They come in and they make a pitch for what they believe in, and they're more forceful. But in reality, what we truly need to do is just bring our true self to the table. And especially in these days and years of diversity and inclusion in the workplace, that the opportunity is there for introverts to take that position in the workplace. It's really another aspect of diversity. It's diversity of thought and approach. And the best companies and the best teams will encourage and want that diversity around the table. They want the extroverts and the people that, brainstorm and think on their feet. And they also want the people that are more paced and introspective, and that can develop into the best solutions and the most creative problem solving. But first, introverts need to understand where their strengths are. Somebody recently asked me, well, what are the best jobs for introverts? And I answered similar to what you just described. I said, it's not a particular job, it's where your strengths and passions are. So there are introverts that are salespeople because they love what they do and they know how to do it their way, to build the relationships in a certain way that helps them to market the product and meet the customer's needs. They love that. So most people would think salespeople, that's not an introvert strength. Somebody said, oh, it's really accountants and IT people. Well, I'm sure there are plenty of accountants and IT people that are introverts, but we should not be looking for what is our job or career based on how can I avoid people, but what are my strengths and passions? And if you really are doing something that you truly enjoy and love, then you'll be much more confident and prepared to go out and engage with people and talk about the work that you have because you're excited about it. So I think that it all starts with understanding who we are and then having the confidence to go out there and make that happen. But life is short, and we shouldn't be working in a job that is miserable. And we either need to change the job or we need to change our approach to the job.
Yes, yes. I see a comment here that introverts are good listeners. And I think that that's true. And as an extrovert, I have to say, it is difficult to listen when I know what needs to be said, and it's so important. But I've learned a lot from you, Steve, and in the business world and leading meetings as a facilitator. I learned to draw people out to come to the conclusions instead of telling them what I know is correct. So I think that everyone can learn from each other and be good listeners and good friends and build relationships by caring about what the other people think and value. So I think your book is very helpful for not only for introverts to learn how to value themselves and their strengths better in the workplace and in life, but also for everyone to have a different perspective on how other people think and view things. So I congratulate you on your book and enjoy working with you on it and being your friend.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And it means a lot because I think that there's lots of opportunities for introverts in the workplace, but the impetus for it is not that we want to try and advocate to have a bunch of all introverts sitting around the meeting table. The idea is we need to work together, and that the best solutions are by having a combination of personalities around the table in a respectful environment where everybody listens and considers what everybody's bringing to the table. And I think that's where a lot of companies are still struggling, is they don't create the environment where people feel comfortable to be themselves. Certainly, it is each individual's responsibility to learn about themselves and to really foster their own authenticity, but the companies also play a role in having an environment that encourages everybody to come to the table. And when they do, that usually creates the best teams and the best companies and the highest worker engagement and satisfaction, lowest turnover. All those things come along with having an environment where people feel comfortable to contribute. So,
well, I think it starts at the top, that the owners, the leaders, whoever is in charge, allows people to give their opinions and values those opinions, doesn't just dictate the way things are and the way things have to be, but allow for discussion and really honest interaction and feedback. And that's difficult. That's very difficult for someone who owns a business or is in charge of a department or is the leader of a project, not to impose their own ideas and plans on everyone else and expect them to agree.
mm-hmm. It is. It takes some humility and it takes some kind of perspective on what the true goals are. And so it's not for me to get my opinion out there, but it's really for the whole organization to succeed in incredible ways. And so it's more than just the individual. It's the collaboration amongst all the individuals.
Well, that's easy. That's easy for an owner or a leader to say, but I'll tell you, when we initiated total quality management in our company, my husband and his brothers and everybody in the management had to be on board and say, I'm not the only decision maker in this project or in this initiative. And it took years for everyone to be on board. And then when someone new came into the company, they had to adjust. And it's your own ego and your own life's work that you're saying, wait a minute, I may not have all the answers. So it's not only in business. So to listen to an introvert, and for an introvert to have the courage to speak up to someone who may govern whether they have a job or not, that culture has got to be very open to allow that. So I challenge the people in leadership in the business, or maybe the father or the mother in a relationship, to listen to those who don't usually speak up and give them the forum to be able to express themselves. So this is not only about your job.
It is life. That's right. But before we roll into questions, I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for joining today and for offering to join the conversation. It's not surprising to me that you jumped in and offered to help with the conversation, because I've grown to know you over the last few years as somebody that not only is very giving, but just attracts people. And the writing that you've done, the two books about Annie and Me and The Miracle of Ed Levine, are just, I love the works because I love the writing in there. But I think even more than that, what I really appreciate is that really these stories and others that you're working on now are stories about other people that they've asked you to come and write their story. So I think that I think that's perhaps more of an extroverted trait, but all that aside, people trust you and want to tell their story in a very moving but honest and authentic way. And they continue to come to you to impart their story upon you and ask you to bring it to life. And so I think that's an incredible gift that you have. And thanks for sharing that today.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. And I've enjoyed our conversation today. I hope everyone has. And Vina, Thank you for inviting me and us.
Thank you both very much. We really enjoyed ourselves, and there's a lot of clarity now. And it does seem that introverts are there's a lot of, people sensitiveness in introverts. So that's a great quality, I think. There are a couple of